Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Today I'm going to be learning how to play Godtear from Steamforged Games. Godtear is a 2-player hex-based skirmish game, and normally the 2 opposing factions would comprise from 2 to 4 champions, with 3 being the standard recommended size. However, because I'm learning how to play the game, and because you only get 2 factions in a starter box, I'm going to be playing a head-to-head between 2 champions. I have Nia, the Shaper champion, and I have Morrigan, the Slayer champion, and these are both from the Eternal Glade starter set. I do have the Borderlands starter set as well, and I have looked at that set in a previous video, but for this learning exercise, I'm keeping it simple, and I'm just doing 1 champion per side. Godtear has a very interesting but quite streamlined rules set. The main crux is that rather than being a game in which you can table your opponent, it's very much focused on victory points and different ways to score victory points. Even if you kill enemy units, they can very easily come back into play, and you can never kill champions, you can just knock them out, and it only costs them an action to get back up. I say only, that's actually a big deal, but they're not gone for good. Nothing is gone for good in this game, and it's much more important to position yourself carefully, plan your strategy in advance, make the attacks that work for your immediate victory point scoring opportunities. Each champion has a different speciality, and that is based on the colour of the miniatures. Nia is a green miniature, which means she is a Shaper champion. Shaper champions will score additional victory points whenever they make a claim action in order to place their banner on one of the objective hexes. Big Scary Morrigan, on the other hand, is a Slayer champion. She will gain an additional victory point whenever she manages to knock out an enemy champion. And I have to say, I do worry a little bit about the balance of this starter set out of the box. Morrigan, being a Slayer, will only have an opportunity to score additional victory points whenever she knocks out Nia. However, Nia is going to get additional victory points every time she makes a claim action. It seems like in a one-on-one, where Morrigan is limited to a single champion to target rather than up to 4 champions, she has less opportunity to get those victory points. But we shall see. Each player has a dashboard for each of their champions, on which they will arrange 3 cards. 1 card is for the champion, 1 card is for the unit of minions that comes with that particular champion, and 1 card covers all of the general special rules for that particular faction, along with a 1-use super ultimate special ability that you can use during the course of the game. And this game has a very interesting 2-phase structure. The first phase is the plot phase, where the designated first player will move all of their champions and minions, and then the second player will move all of their champions and miniatures. Every time you activate a unit, you will flip the card over. They will start on the white side, which is the plot side, and then they will flip to this black side, which is the second phase of the game, the clash phase. In the clash phase, the game switches to an I go, you go format, where you pick one of your champions or one of your units, and then your opponent will pick a champion or a unit, and you keep going backwards and forwards. And you will notice that when you flip the card over, the abilities that you have access to will change. So you do have to kind of know your units quite well. You need to know what you can do in each phase of the game in order to set up situations. So you will do something in the plot phase that will benefit you later on in the clash phase. This is where a lot of the learning curve is going to come into this game. I think the rules themselves are relatively straightforward, but there is a lot to learn in your faction abilities, and once you've got 3 champions on the table, there's going to be a lot to keep track of, a lot to remember, and you're probably going to forget quite a lot in your early learning games. And this is your heads up. I am learning to play this game on video. I would imagine there will be a few mistakes as we go along. As the game revolves around scoring victory points, it actually has quite an interesting point scoring system. Each round, you are playing for a fixed number of victory points. You have a round tracker, and on the reverse of the tracker are the number of victory points that are up for grabs. This starts at 1 for round 2, it goes up to 2 for round 2, it caps at 3 for round 3, and then at round 4 it goes back to 2, and for round 5 it's back to 1. So we have a bell curve for the scoring. The token for the current round starts on the score tracker one step closer to the first player, and that's because there is a slight second player advantage where you will get the final action in the clash phase, giving you the last opportunity to grab a victory point. So the victory points will start ever so slightly closer to the first player. And over the course of the game, you will score victory points for knocking out champions, slaying minions, placing your banner, having your banner on the board at the end of the round. Whenever you score those victory points, the token will move towards you. When your opponent scores victory points, it will move back towards them. At the end of the round, whoever has the token closest to them wins the round and scores the victory points on the reverse of the token. Why are these champions fighting? They are fighting to acquire the power of Godtears, the shattered remnants of the gods that have fallen to earth and created these craters on the battlefield. And a lot of the game will revolve around these particular objective tiles. Champions can stand on these tiles, minions cannot. This is because the power of the gods will rip apart mere mortals. During the course of the game, your champion can place a banner onto one of these objectives, and that banner will score a victory point when it goes down, and will score additional victory points if it is still there at the end of the clash phase. And that's pretty much the gist of what we're doing here. We're going to assume that Nia is the first player for this particular round, and we are going to deploy to the battlefield. Here we are set up, ready to play. Champions fill up a hex by themselves. The minions, you can fit up to 3 in each hex, unless they are a large minion. There are times when you may want to spread your minions out. There are times when you may want them to group together, because generally when they attack en masse, they get better stats. They are more likely to hit and they are more likely to cause damage. We're going to activate Nia first, and she can take 2 actions. However, we have a special ability here called Rock Concert. It says if all 3 Quartz Slings are on the battlefield when Nia activates, she may make a bonus action this activation. So I will be taking 3 actions with Nia. This is just as well because she only has a movement of 1. She has a dodge of 4, she has a defense of 2, and she has 6 life points. She has access to a basic move ability and advance, which will allow her to move up to her speed of 1. During the plot phase, she will also be able to place a banner if she finishes adjacent to an objective, and she has access to 3 special abilities. She has Crystal Mirror, which says choose a boon on any model within range, then choose a friendly model within range to gain that boon. This isn't relevant at the moment because nobody has boons. Boons are integral to your strategy in this game. They enable you to buff your characters. At the same time, there are debuffs that you can apply to your enemies. Another one of her abilities is Meditation, which allows her to gain a boon for accuracy. And then she has March, which allows her to move up to 1 hex. So having 3 actions available for this turn and needing to get into a position to start scoring from the objective hexes, she is going to make a regular move, but she will also make a March move. Nia starts with a regular move. She then makes a March. That's 2 actions. She has a 3rd action available because of her special ability. Unfortunately, she is out of range for actually placing her banner on a scoring hex this round. You're not allowed to take the same action twice, so for her 3rd action she is going to use the Meditation ability. This gains her 1 accuracy boon, which goes above her character card. You can only have a maximum of 1 of each type of boon. Similarly, you can only have 1 of each Blight, and for each boon there is its opposite, so you can get a +1 accuracy or a -1 accuracy. If you would ever have a boon and a Blight that would affect the same stat, they cancel each other out. Now Nia has finished her activation, we need to activate the Quartz Slings, and they get 2 actions as well, and whichever actions you apply them to the whole unit, even if they're on different hexes. Quartz Slings have a movement of 2, a dodge of 2, a defense of 4, and 1 hit point each. They have, in the plot phase, 3 special abilities. They have Calcify, which says if this Quartz Sling is the only model in its hex and is adjacent to an objective hex, replace it with an objective. They have Shimmer, which is a range 2 attack, which doesn't cause any damage, but actually puts a slow blight onto the target. And they have the special ability Rock Formation, which says when Nia's banner is removed from the battlefield, the Slings may immediately make a recruit action, even if it is the end of the phase. That basically means if one of your Slings dies during the round and then later on your banner is removed from the board, you get that Sling back. Unfortunately, at this early stage of the game, I'm not in a position to make use of both actions that the Slings have available. The best I can do is advance 2 spaces with each of them. That actually finishes our first turn in the plot phase, and we must remember to flip our cards over to the clash phase. It is now the second player's turn to activate. We can either activate Morrigan first and then the unit, or the unit and then Morrigan. We are going to activate Morrigan first. As you can see, she has a movement of 2, a dodge of 2, a defense of 3 and 6 life points. She has access to 2 special abilities. She has Forward Minions, which has a range of 4 spaces and says move each cold bones that is within range up to 2 hexes. This is an invaluable tool for her because it allows her to move her very slow moving cold bones unit and get them into combat, which they need to be doing. She also has the attack Frosty Glance, which doesn't cause any wounds, but it does have a hit effect where it applies a defense blight and also allows Morrigan to move 1 hex towards the target, keeping her moving, keeping her advancing forwards and putting her in positions where she can do some serious damage. And this is where it's important to understand the skills of your characters and your units and how they work together, and think about the order in which you're going to do things, because Morrigan only has a movement of 2 and she's only allowed to make a single advance action in a turn. That means she wouldn't actually be able to get in range of a objective hex to place her banner. However, her unit of cold bones have the special ability called So Cool Mistress. It says if Morrigan is within range and the range is 3, then she gains an accuracy or a speed boon. So if we activate the cold bones first, we can give her a speed boon, which will enable her to move further and will enable her to place a banner in this first turn, scoring a vital victory point. So we're going to move our cold bones first. We start by playing So Cool Mistress and applying a +1 speed boon to Morrigan. For our second action, we're going to advance because we want to get into the thick of battle as soon as possible. Unfortunately, we only have a movement of 1. We now get to activate Morrigan. Morrigan would normally be able to move only 2 hexes, however she has that speed boon. Furthermore, she has a special ability called Frost Forged, which says that she will gain a +2 bonus for a boon instead of a +1 bonus. So we can actually move up to 4 spaces. We don't want to go too far in advance of our troops, so we're going to go 3 spaces. And for our second action, we are going to place our banner on an objective. Here's our banner. We get a special miniature for it, and we're going to place it here. And because we have placed our banner, we get to score a victory point. This pulls the victory point token 1 space towards us, onto our half of the board. If it stays there until the end of the round, we will score the victory points. Unfortunately, that is both of our actions used. I would very much have liked to have used Forward Minions to get the cold bones to advance, but I'm not able to do that. Furthermore, because we have used our speed boon, that is taken away. It only applies to the next action that uses that particular stat, and then it is gone. Finally, of course, we have to remember to turn over our cards. And now, with the plotting phase out of the way, we move into the clash phase and we go back to Nia. So this is the state of play at the moment. Unfortunately, in the clash phase, Nia can move 2 spaces, but that isn't going to put her in range to attack anything because all of her attacks have a range of 2. We'll look at those in a moment. Even more of a disadvantage, our Slings don't get a movement at all. Their advance statistic is 0. They have 0 speed. They do have a special ability that enables them to carry on moving, but it's limited in how you can apply it. But we're going to move our Slings first because we may be able to at least take a little pot shot at Morrigan, a warning shot across the bow. As you can see here, our Quartzling's statistic for speed is 0. But they have the Rolling Stones ability, which says each Quartzling may move up to 3 hexes in a straight line. So we're going to apply that rule, and then following that we're going to do Stone's Throw. Now if we look at the Stone's Throw ability, we can see there are 3 stats. The first stat is range, and that is 2. The second stat is accuracy, and the third stat is damage. And you can see that there are 3 rows, and there are different stats on each row. And that's because the stats change depending on how many of your minions are in the hex when you attack. So if you only have 1 minion to attack with, you use the first row of the stats. If you have 2 minions on the hex, they attack using the second row. And if you have all 3, they will use the third row. Unfortunately, because of the way that we have positioned ourselves, we're only going to be able to attack with 1 Quartzling, but let's give it a go anyway. First of all, we're going to use Rolling Stone to move up to 3 spaces. I'm going to move 2 with this one, and because I'm going in a straight line, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 with these guys. Remember, these minions are not allowed to stand on the objective hexes in the middle of the board, so Morrigan has placed herself in a very strategic position that is making it difficult for me to attack her. I am now going to attack with my single Quartzling using a Stone's Throw. Morrigan is within range of 2, so I check my accuracy stat for the attack, and it's a 4, which means I will be rolling 4 dice. And for the attacks, you use these custom dice which have single successes, dual successes, and blanks. We are looking to equal or beat Morrigan's dodge stat, which is 2. If we succeed, we can roll for damage. That is a whole lot of nothing. The stone goes wide, Morrigan avoids the attack. Our Quartzlings are done, so we flip our card back over as a reminder that they have activated in this clash phase and will not be able to activate again. We now go over to the other side of the table and Morrigan takes an action. So looking at the reverse side of the cards for Morrigan's forces, we can see that Morrigan now has the ability Snowball's Chance, which is a very, very difficult ability to pull off. It has a range of 1, an accuracy of 1, and a damage of 2. However, if you do manage to inflict a wound with it, then the target is immediately knocked out, so that can be a real champion killer. Unfortunately, you really need to stack up some boons on Morrigan and stack up some blights on your target in order to pull it off effectively, I would say. She also has Ice Blade, which is a range 1 attack, which does a lot of damage, and if the target already has a blight on it, they gain an additional wound. She also has Ice Bolt, which is a range 3 attack, which does have the potential for causing damage, but also causes a -1 accuracy blight. The Cold Bones have the ability Intense Cold, which will actually give them a damage boost that goes on themselves. And then they have the Snowblade Fight Power, which is a range 1 attack. And the good thing about that ability is you get an increase in your accuracy based on the number of minions you have surrounding the target. So the Cold Bones really do work well as a mob. Unfortunately, they're well out of range to do any serious damage this round, but we're going to start by activating them. We're going to start by doing an advance action, moving 1 hex. And for our second action, we're going to perform Intense Cold on ourselves to gain a damage boon. Poor Nia does have a bit of a problem at the moment. She only has a movement of 2. She's out of range of everything. The best thing she can do is advance into an advantageous position. Unfortunately, that advantageous position could well put her within range of attacks from the Cold Bones, and as the Cold Bones are slayers and they will score additional victory points for taking Nia out of action, she doesn't really want to do that, but she does need to get towards those scoring objectives, so she's going to go just 1 space forwards for now. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to place your banner in the clash phase, so she has missed that opportunity to score a victory point, or in fact 2 victory points in her case, and furthermore, she is out of range to do any of her attacks. Considering she has 3 actions available to her on this turn due to her Rock Concert ability, which says she gets a 3rd action if she has all 3 Quartz Slings on the board, it's a bit of a waste, but there's nothing we can do about that for now. Once again, we have to remember to flip our card back to the plot phase. And because we didn't use our accuracy token, it stays there, it doesn't go away. It will only go away when we actually make an attack action. Morrigan is going to work on the basis that fortune favours the bold. She is going to advance 2 spaces. And for her second action, she is going to play Ice Bolt on Nia. Ice Bolt is a range 3 attack. You roll 7 dice for accuracy, and if you hit, you roll 3 dice for damage. And as soon as you hit, you also apply a -1 accuracy blight to the target. Nia has a dodge of 4, but with 7 dice to attack, we have a good chance of actually hitting her. And there we go, it's a big hit. And now we roll to see if we do damage. Our damage stat for this attack is 3, and Nia's defense is 2, which means we roll 3 dice, we add up the number of hits, we then take away 2 for the damage resistance of Nia, and then anything left over is applied as wounds. So we've actually hit 3 times there. We take off the 2, so Nia takes a wound. We add a wound token to our dashboard for Nia. That 1 wound doesn't seem particularly significant now, but if we can start building up wounds on Nia and then knock her out in a later round, we're going to get a big score of victory points for that, and that could swing the game in our favour. Remember, she only has 6 hit points total. Furthermore, because of the Ice Bolt ability that it inflicts a blight on accuracy, we have to remove this boon token because you cannot have a boon and a blight that affects the same stat. It just cancels out. Regardless, Nia has lost the small advantage she had for a future attack. And now that Morrigan's action has ended, that ends her turn. We have to remember to flip her card to the plot side. And because we have no other champions or units, that actually ends the round. At the end of the round, the first thing we do is we work out victory points for banners. Each player that has banner on the board will score 4 victory points unless they are a guardian, which are the blue champions, they score 5. So in this case, Morrigan scores 4 for her banner, and we take that off the board. Nia didn't get her banner on the board, so she doesn't score any. We then go over to the victory point tracker and we adjust it based on the difference between those scores. So in this case, Morrigan will move the counter 4 spaces closer to her. As you can see, Morrigan has handily won the round, which means that she takes this turn tracker and she scores the number of victory points on the reverse. The aim of the game is to get to 5 victory points. The final thing you have to do in the round is look at any special rules in the scenario you're playing. For the life scenario, which we are playing here, there is a special rule that gives an advantage to the person who lost the round. The player rolls a dice, adds 2 to the result, and then adds that many objective hexes to the board. So in this case, Nia is going to add 3 objective hexes. They have to be placed one at a time in spaces that are adjacent to other objective hexes. Obviously, we want to put them in positions where we can take advantage of them, but Morrigan can't. We're going to go here, here, and here. We'll create a little barrier that will prevent the cold bones from swarming us. Finally, as Nia did not win, she gets to choose whether she's going to be the first player or the second player in the second round. So she has to take a quick look at the board and decide whether it's going to be advantageous to move all of her pieces first, or whether it's going to be advantageous to let Morrigan have that first player initiative. In this case, she's going to choose to go first. And because she has chosen to go first, we will place our turn marker 1 space closer to her on the victory point tracker. Now we've got through the first round, we're going to try and speed things up a little bit. So we're going to start by activating Nia. She gets 3 actions because of her rock concert. We're going to go advance, claim. We score 2 victory points for claiming there, because 1 victory point for putting your banner down, and an additional victory point because she is a shaper. And for her third action, she is going to meditate to gain one of these tokens. Our Quartz Slings are going to start by doing a Shimmer Attack on Morrigan. I'm going to make the attack from this hex because there are 2 of my Quartz Slings in that space, which means I will get a bonus to my accuracy. This attack has a range of 2 and an accuracy of 5 if there are 2 of my minions attacking, and it doesn't do any damage, but if I successfully hit, then Morrigan will gain a slow token. I have rolled 5 hits. Morrigan's dodge value is only 2, so she will take a slow blight. For our second action, we're going to work on the basis that discretion is the better part of valor. We're going to retreat 1, 2, and 1. For Morrigan's turn, we're going to start with the Cold Bones. We're going to perform So Cool Mistress, and we're going to use that to give her an accuracy boon. One of these. And then for their second action, they're going to advance 1 space. We're going to go 1 and 1. Morrigan is going to start by playing forward minions, which allows her to move all of her Cold Bones up to 2 hexes if they are within 4 spaces, which they are. So we'll go 1, 2, and 1, 2. For her second action, she's going to play Frosty Glance on Nia. It's got an accuracy of 5 as standard, but she has a boon which makes it +6, and because she has the Frost Forged ability, she gets an additional +1 again, so she will be rolling 7 dice. If she hits, then Nia will gain a defense blight, and also Morrigan will get to move 1 hex towards the target. So we spend our token and we roll our 7 dice. We need to equal or better 4. And we have scored 5, so we have hit Nia, which means she will get a defense blight, and as an additional perk, Morrigan gets to move 1 space towards the target. She is going to move here. You will notice that Morrigan did not place her banner this round. This is because she has a sneaky plan, and really, she's going to focus more on trying to kill Nia than placing banners and scoring victory points that way. For the start of the clash phase, we're going to use Nia first. The reason being, we still have 3 Quartz Slings on the board at this moment, which means she will get 3 actions. After Morrigan's had an activation, there may be less Quartz Slings, which means Nia may become less effective. So we're going to start by playing Crystal Glare. This is an ability with a range of 2. You can place a Blight that is on any model within range of 2, on any other model or unit within range of 2. Morrigan actually has a speed blight at the moment, so I am going to mirror that blight and also apply it to her Cold Bones, which are within range 2, so they will gain a -1 speed debuff. For my second action, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to attack these Cold Bones with Erosion, which would actually give them a defense blight, and then I was going to hit them with Blinding Light, which had a chance to inflict damage. However, I've got a +1 accuracy at the moment, and I would rather use the +1 accuracy when there's an opportunity to maybe inflict some damage. So I'm going to hit them with Blinding Light first. So normally I would be rolling 4 dice for this attack, however, because I have the accuracy boon, it will be 5 dice, and then this is discarded. And I don't get to make that choice. I don't get to hold on to that accuracy to use later on. It will always be for my next hit roll. The Cold Bones have a dodge of 2, so I need at least 2 successes. And I got my 3, so I have successfully hit them. The damage roll for this attack is 5, and the Cold Bones have a defense of 3, so I am adding up my successes and then reducing it by 3. So I've rolled 5 hits, less a defense of 3, that's 2 hits have gone through. Now, even though there are 2 Cold Bones on the target hex, my attack only targets one of them unless the rules state otherwise, so I can only remove 1 of the Cold Bones, even though they only have a single hit point each, and I have technically inflicted enough damage to kill them both. So the Morrigan player removes 1 of the Cold Bones, And then because Nia knocked out one of the minions, she gains a victory point on the victory point tracker. For Nia's third action, she is going to attempt to strike with Erosion. That's a range to attack, rolling 5 dice. And she's actually going to target Morrigan with this. We roll 5 dice, we need to equal or beat Morrigan's dodge of 2. And that's exactly 2, which is just enough to inflict the Blight on her. So she will have a defense Blight, but she doesn't take any damage. Now Morrigan is not best pleased. Morrigan has a speed value of 2, and her plan was to go stomp, because if she gets to stand on an opponent's banner, then the banner is removed from play, and that means the banner will not score victory points at the end of the round, and that's a really good way to deny your opponent from a big chunk of points. However, she currently has a speed Blight on her, which means she only has a movement of 1, and the Cold Bones don't have anything they can do to assist her movement at this point. So, in a peak of rage, she is going to instead turn all of her wrath on Nia, and she's going to do a double attack on Nia. She's going to start by doing Ice Bolt, which has an accuracy of 7 and 3 dice for damage. Nia has a dodge of 4, so we're looking for at least 4 successes here. We've got our 5 successes. We now roll 3 for damage, and because Nia has a defense Blight, her defense is only 1, so this is an opportunity to put some serious damage onto her. We have rolled 2 successes. Less her 1 defense means 1 hit gets through. Additionally, Ice Bolt has an ability that will apply an accuracy Blight to the target, so Nia will take 1 wound and 1 accuracy Blight. However, because she has now been on the receiving end of a hit, her defense Blight is taken away. But there is a reason that Morrigan has done the attacks in the order that she has, because she now has her Ice Blade attack. The Ice Blade attack has an accuracy of 5, and if it hits, it will immediately inflict 1 wound on anybody who has a Blight on their speed, their accuracy, or their damage. So the fact that we've applied that accuracy Blight to Nia means that we only have to hit to inflict a wound, and then we still get to roll our 5 damage dice as well. So this is actually an opportunity to knock Nia out. Wow, that is a massive hit. That is 7 damage. We take away 2 for Nia's defense because she's back up to a full defense, having had that defense Blight removed, which means 5 wounds have got through. We've already inflicted 1 wound on her this round, and she had 2 wounds from a previous round. She's going down. That's a whole lot of pain, and Nia is in trouble now. The first thing that happens when you get knocked out is any status tokens you have, including Blights, are removed from the character. So that's a good thing. However, the wounds are not removed. Second, the player who knocked you out gets to move you up to 2 hexes. In this case, Morrigan is going to move Nia 1, 2. Nia is currently knocked out. She cannot do anything on her turn except use her first action to rally, which will remove the wounds from her and get her back into the fight. Finally, Morrigan gets some fat victory points for doing this because she is a slayer and this is what she lives for, even though she's undead. Normally you would advance the token 4 spaces for knocking out a champion, but Morrigan gets an additional step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a big moment for Morrigan. However, even as I'm moving this token, I can see the big mistake she has made. And this is something I think as you play the game, you're going to learn, you're going to develop these strategies more, because you really need to think about how many victory points you're going to get for something and whether it's worth waiting until the next turn to get those victory points. In this particular instance, it probably wasn't the right move to knock Nia out. It might have been better to have stacked up those wounds on her and then had her primed to go down in round 3, because Morrigan may well have just blown her chances to win. Earlier on in the round, Nia was very sneaky, and she applied a Blight on speed to the Cold Bones. Cold Bones only have a speed of 1, so they're pretty much stuck in place. That means as long as I'm not adjacent to them, they're not going to be able to do anything to hurt me in their turn. So for my first action, I am going to do Rolling Stones, and I'm going to use that to roll this little chap 2 spaces back. These guys are going to roll 1 space this way. And there's a reason for that. The reason being, there is a Cold Bones off the table, which means the Cold Bones will be able to make a recruit action. When you make a recruit action, you place 1 knocked out minion on a space adjacent to your champion. So they could actually recruit a Cold Bones and place it here, which would mean they would be adjacent to these chaps and would mean that they would actually be able to make an attack. By moving 1 space over here, the Cold Bones aren't going to be able to reach me. With my second action, I'm going to throw some stones. We have 2 Quartz Slings throwing stones at the Cold Bones over here, so I am rolling 5 dice for accuracy and 4 dice for damage. Cold Bones have a dodge of 2, so we're looking for 2 successes. And it's a big miss. The Quartz Slings obviously have very bad aim. They're giving Stormtroopers a run for their money. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We don't actually need the victory points because we have a banner on the board and Morrigan is not going to be able to remove it. The Cold Bones are going to do a recruit action, which means they get to take their fallen comrade and he will rise from the grave and we will place him here. And now because they don't have any attacks that are beyond range 1, for their second action they are going to do an advance. Doing an advance isn't going to achieve them anything in terms of gaining movement because they are stuck in place. However, performing the advance action does cause the Blight to be removed because it's been used. So next turn they will be able to move as normal. Unfortunately, that is it for their turn. There's nothing else they can do because remember, Nia is knocked out. She's already down and you can't kick a champion when they're down. You have to wait for them to get back up so you can knock them down again. So it's the end of the round and that means we have to work out victory points for banners. Morrigan didn't put her banner on the board, but Nia did. It gets removed now, and in removing it, we score 4 victory points. 1, 2, 3, 4. That brings the victory point token onto Nia's side of the board, so Nia wins the round. She will get 2 victory points. Despite the fact she was knocked out, despite the fact that Morrigan was pleased as punch and got to be all triumphant for a moment, it's Nia who takes the round. She will be at a disadvantage next round because she starts the round knocked out and will need to spend one of her actions to rally. However, she has 3 Quartz Slings on the board, which means she gets 3 actions anyway, so even having to rally, she's still going to have 2 actions, putting her in good shape for the round to come. Of course, because Morrigan has lost the round, she gets the end of round advantages. So we roll a dice. That's actually a blank, but we add 2 to it, so Morrigan will get to place 2 hexes on the board. And she is going to use the hexes to try and divide and conquer the Quartz Slings. We have a single Quartz Sling over here who isn't very effective in combat by himself, but if he can get over here and join his friends, he could become more powerful. So we're going to place 1 hex there, and we will place 1 hex there. Finally, Morrigan gets to pick whether to go first or second, and she wants to go first because it's going to give her an opportunity to better position herself for attacking later in the round. We place our round 3 marker here on her side of the table. At the start of turn 3, Morrigan does have a small problem. She is a slayer with no one to slay. Nia is still out for the count at this point, and while a champion is knocked out, you cannot target them to apply any blights or anything like that. So we can't just start wailing on her while she's down for the count. Which means Morrigan needs to look at other ways to set herself up for scoring victory points in the future. So we're going to start by activating Morrigan, and we're going to first of all place our banner. And we want to place our banner as far away from Nia as possible so that Nia cannot move into a position to stomp on it and remove it from the board. So we'll place it there. For our second action, we're going to play forward minions, which enables us to move each of our cold bones up to 2 hexes as long as they are currently within 4 hexes of Morrigan, and they all are. And what I want to do here is I want to prevent Nia from moving. We're going to leave this cold bones where he is. We're going to go 1, 2, 1, and this one's going to stay. No, we're going to go here, and we'll leave this one here. And this cold bones over here is going to go 1, 2, round to here. Now the cold bones will activate, and they are going to start by playing So Cool Mistress, and they are going to give Morrigan a speed boon. She currently has a speed blight on her, so the blight will be cancelled out by the boon. For the second action, we're not really in a good position to do our chill out attack because we have very little chance of hurting these guys. So we're going to do a move action, and everybody's going to stay where they are except for this chap here. He's going to move 1 space closer here. We're just going to try and consolidate our forces. And of course, because Morrigan placed her banner in that turn, she will get to move the victory point tracker 1 step closer to her. From Nia's side of the table, things look a little rough, but she does still have some tricks up her sleeve. First of all, we're going to activate our Quartz Slings, and we are going to attack with Shimmer on the cold bones here. Shimmer, if you remember, doesn't cause any damage, but it does put a speed blight on the cold bones, and because the cold bones are so slow, it can cause them to grind to a halt. For this attack, we are rolling 5 dice, and we need to match or exceed the cold bones dodge value of 2. So we've successfully hit, and that means the cold bones do receive a blight token. For the Quartz Sling's second action, we are going to do an advance. Our little fella here is going to advance 2, taking the long road around, and we are going to move 1 Quartz Sling here and 1 here. We now have to activate Nia. Of course, Nia is knocked out, so her first action is to rally. When you rally, you remove all of the wound tokens from your dashboard and you are back in the fight. There are no long-term ramifications for that, other than the fact that your opponent got victory points for knocking you out and you have had to spend one of your valuable actions. Of course, because Nia has 3 Quartz Slings on the board, she gets 3 actions this round, so she still has 2 actions left. And for her second action, she is going to play her ultimate ability. Playing an ultimate ability costs an action as normal, and our ability is Geode. It says, in the plot phase only, choose a Quartz Sling that is the only model in its hex and is adjacent to an objective hex, and replace it with an objective hex. If it is within 2 hexes of Nia, she may make a claim action on that hex. So we are going to remove this poor Quartz Sling here. We replace him with an objective hex. That objective hex is within 2 of Nia, so she gets to make a claim action as part of her ultimate move. And for that action, she will score 2 victory points, 1 for placing the banner and a bonus 1 because she is a Shaper champion. For her final action, she is going to move here. And that's just because she was surrounded by cold bones who had a good chance of causing her some serious damage. By moving the way she is limiting the amount of attacks that are going to be thrown at her. We move the victory point tracker 2 spaces on the ladder towards Nia. And of course we have to remember to flip over all of the cards to their reverse side as we begin the clash phase. At this point, Morrigan really needs to score some victory points. She's not in a position to remove Nia's banner from play, and she's also going to find it very difficult to knock out Nia this round. She could target the lone Quartz Ling, and she has a very good chance of killing that Quartz Ling. It will score her 1 victory point. However, Nia has a very good chance of slaying one of the Cold Bones, and the Cold Bones are not in a position to retreat because they have no movement. And that being the case, all things being equal, that would be 1 victory point each, which would leave the victory point token on Nia's side of the board, gifting her the round, and in fact gifting her the game, because she would have scored 5 victory points by the end of the round. So really, Morrigan's got to go for it. She's got to target Nia and try to put as much damage on Nia as possible. So she is also going to use her ultimate ability. Her ultimate ability is called Flash Freeze. It says all enemies within a range of 3 will gain a -1 dodge and a -1 speed. Both Nia and the Quartz Ling are in range of that attack. So Nia and the Quartz Lings have received 2 blights each. Now Morrigan is going to do the only thing she can do. She is going to fire an Ice Bolt on Nia. Ice Bolt has an accuracy of 7 and rolls 3 damage. Nia's dodge is normally 4, but with the blight that she has, it will be 3. We roll our 7 dice, and we have succeeded in surpassing Nia's dodge of 3. However, because we have succeeded in that attack, Nia's blight token will be removed from her dashboard, because remember, boons and blights are only effective once. We now roll for damage. We roll 3 dice. We have to reduce the number of hits we get by 2 for Nia's defense value. So we have hit her once. We have caused 1 wound. Not really good enough. However, because we did manage to hit Nia, she will also gain a -1 accuracy blight, which is a special rule of the Ice Bolt attack. Despite having started the round knocked out, Nia is now in a pretty strong position. Because the Cold Bones have a blight on their movement, they are effectively stuck in place, which means the most that they can bring to bear is 2 attack. Now, if they did manage to hit her, which is possible, they would be rolling 4 damage dice. 4 damage dice can potentially generate 8 hits. 8 hits minus her 2 armor would be 6, so they could effectively kill her. So what we're going to do is run away. In the clash phase, Nia has a movement of 2, so the best thing she can do really is just step back. That's all she needs to do, because her banner is going to be in the game at the end of the round, which will score her a whole heck of a heap of victory points and win her the game. She just has to stay alive. She gets a second action, of course. She doesn't get her bonus 3rd action because we have a Quartz Ling off the table. But we might as well, for our second action, attack this Cold Bone here using our Blinding Light. Normally we would be rolling 4 dice for this attack, but we do have an accuracy blight at the moment, so we will be rolling 3 dice instead. We are looking to match a dodge value of 2, which we have done, despite having an accuracy blight, which of course is now discarded. Blinding Light actually applies an accuracy blight onto the target, so we will put that on Morrigan's dashboard for her Cold Bones. And then we will roll our attack dice. Cold Bones have a defense of 3. We have rolled 4. We inflict a single hit, which is exactly enough to kill the Cold Bone. So we remove this Cold Bone from play. I'm glad this happened, because eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that Nia did cheat a little bit. Nia actually just moved 2 spaces, 1, 2. However, Nia did have a movement blight, which means she was actually only able to move 1 space, which means she would actually have been there. Of course, we have successfully killed the Cold Bone, which was the only Cold Bone who was actually going to be in a position to attack her back. Unfortunately, Cold Bones do have a special ability that says whenever one of them is removed from the table, the enemy that killed them takes a dodge blight token. So Nia is now blighted for her dodge. That's something that I actually forgot to do earlier in the game, but I don't think it would have made a difference. Regardless, Nia is pretty much in safety now anyway, so I don't think that dodge token is going to be a problem. And of course, we gain a victory point for slaying the Cold Bone. Looking at the state of play now, it's fair to say that Morrigan made a tactical error this round. Really, she should have activated her Cold Bones first. At that point, there was more of them in base contact with Nia, so they had more chance of actually inflicting some damage on her. But it's too late now. We have Cold Bones to activate, but the Cold Bones have no movement. The only attack they have has a range of 1, so they cannot strike at Nia. There really is nothing they can do at this point. And this just emphasises the importance of thinking very carefully about the order in which you activate your units, and how important that can be when you play the larger scale games where you may have 3 or 4 champions per side. Even in this situation where we have 1 champion and 1 unit, activating them in the wrong order has effectively cost Morrigan the match. The Cold Bones have nothing to do except play an advance action, which will remove their movement blight, but they are stuck still where they are. And that's it. That's all they can do. Finally, the Quartz Slings get to activate. They get 2 actions. For the first action, they are going to play Recruit. That allows them to put a Quartz Sling adjacent to Nia. We will put the Quartz Sling there. And then for their second and final action, they will attempt to rub salt into the wound by throwing stones at this Cold Bone here. Because there are 2 Quartz Slings throwing stones, they will roll 5 dice for this attack. We're trying to match a dodge value of 2. And finally, my Quartz Slings hit something. They now roll 4 dice for damage. That's 4 hits, less the defense value of a Cold Bone, which is 3. That inflicts a single wound, which is enough to remove another Cold Bone from play. That really is insult to injury for Morrigan, because Nia claims another victory point. The Quartz Slings should also gain a dodge blight because they have killed a Cold Bone. However, they already have a dodge blight on their character sheet from when Morrigan performed her ultimate ability, and you cannot have more than 1 blight or boon of the same type. We remove the Cold Bone from play. We advance the victory tracker 1 step towards Nia. And that is the end of the round. Both champions will score 4 victory points for having their banners on the board, so that doesn't do anything to the victory point tracker. It's a tug-of-war, it goes both ways and ends up exactly where it is, which means Nia has won the round. When we flip over the token, we can see that she has earned 3 victory points. When added to the 2 victory points she won in the previous round, she has acquired 5 victory points, which wins her the game at the end of turn 3. And that is Godtear. So despite taking a bit of a battering, Nia wins in the end. Now of course this is obviously a very simple version of the game. Playing with only 1 champion aside, you are only getting a very truncated version of the whole game experience. But even from this, it's possible to start seeing how the tactics and the strategies in the game work. The order in which you do things, the order in which you apply your blights and boons, the order in which you take them back off again. There's a lot to think about here. I definitely made some strategic errors, especially on the part of Morrigan. The final turn was a disaster for her because I made a foolish error. But of course that's to be expected when learning the game. Also, there's a very good chance that I forgot to apply a few boons and blights here and there. There is quite a lot to think about in terms of what tokens are on which unit and which units have certain special abilities. I know at least once I forgot to apply Brain Freeze, which is the Cold Bone's ability to apply a dodge blight to an enemy that manages to kill a Cold Bone. But regardless, that's all things that will come with time and with experience. Overall, hopefully I didn't make too many mistakes other than my mistakes as a terrible general. And hopefully this has given you a good look at what Godtear is all about, how it plays, how the mechanisms of the game work. I think it's great. I think it's got a lot to think about. I think it's got some really interesting mechanisms. It is quite streamlined in its core mechanisms, but there's so many special abilities, so many tokens, so many things that can interact, so many moving parts. It's not quite as simple as it first appears, but it's good. I enjoyed this. Hopefully you did too. If you have liked the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.